Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode on my channel. As always, I'm Jay, and today, guys, I'm going all in on the spoiler review for Rise of Skywalker. Critics are massacring it left and right. People are saying that they don't like the choices that have been made, and guys, it is not looking good for the ratings of this film, at least again from the critics' perspective, and some people that you might be seeing on YouTube. And a lot of that is because of the polarization that happened with the last film, The Last Jedi, because of a lot of the subverting that Rian Johnson did as far as expectations, how he smashed them in good and bad ways, and how he took the different steps that he took to turn the franchise into a much different direction than much of us would have preferred. All in all, that's neither here nor there. We're focusing on this film itself, and guys, I have to be honest. Actually really enjoyed this film for what it was, and I want to get into a lot of different things. I'm not going to give a play-by-play of the film necessarily, but I will be delving into the spoilers, and especially I'm going to cover some things that I found interesting for the plot points. I'm going to cover the complaints that people have with this film, what I think about them. I'm going to cover my complaints, and then I'm going to go into what I really liked about the film and give my overall rating of it. So one of the first things that I noticed is that this text crawl, for which Star Wars is notorious for, was only like 3 paragraphs long, very basic, very tight, not much in the way of background, and we just jumped straight into the movie, which is kind of needed because what they packed into this movie was plentiful, and they had no time to waste, especially since this is the finale of finales, not only of this trilogy, but of the entire Skywalker Saga in general. And I think that the majority of the film spends a lot of time not so much retconning, but really kind of playing up on the awesome aspects that were downplayed in the last film, but also to do a little bit of course correcting, but also trying to further the mythos and add in those callbacks, those cameos, which for a franchise like this, because it's the final chapter, you need to kind of have those callbacks in there, and that doesn't bother me so much. We had Lando Calrissian come through, which Billy D. Williams looks fantastic in this film. I'd seen him at some conventions and he was looking rough, but I don't know what they did, whether it was digital or just makeup wise, but they made him look fantastic. Carrie Fisher is back in this film as well, in the way of deleted footage that they utilized and kind of reworked for the narrative. And I do believe that that footage was from the last film, and actually The Force Awakens more so. A little bit of oddities come through in some of the dialogue that doesn't really feel right for the context in certain points, and there is a little bit of a reversed camera shot kind of syndrome going on. For what it is, it brings her spirit and her character back to life, and it is a warm welcome for this send-off, especially with the role that she plays in this film. She has now taken up the mantle of actually teaching Rey the remainder of the other Jedi skills that she needs, because, as it's revealed, Luke trained Leia in the ways of the Force in many different things, which I thought was a cool aspect and I will touch upon later. Other than that, we have our main heroes, Rey, Poe, and Finn, back in action along with Chewie and others. They're back on their A game, in their top element, making jokes, doing awesome adventures. And yes, the rumors are true. Well, not really rumors, because it was revealed in the trailer, but Emperor Palpatine has returned because what? Rey is his granddaughter.
What?
That's right, guys. Rey is revealed to be his granddaughter, which makes for some awesome little story elements, and I thought that that was a really cool aspect to this. Not only that, but also it actually went against some of the fan theories, and they actually ended up flipping that on its head. Alright, guys, so now we're going to get into some of the complaints that some of the critics are talking about with this film. First off, the film is messy and rushed. Yeah, there's no way getting around it. It is, especially for the fact that they had to switch and bring back J.J. Abrams in after all the kind of division that ended up happening. So for this one, they had to do a lot of rewriting, course correcting, retconning, whatever you want to call it. But it does show as kind of a messy little slap together thing at some points, but it doesn't detract for the fun and enjoyment of the film, at least for me. Next, we have this whole thing that Rey is overpowered. Yeah, I mean, if she's like literally the only Jedi that can fight and everything, she kind of has to be. I mean, otherwise you're not going to believe that she can take on the Emperor unless she can do things that we haven't seen Jedi do before. I do like the fact that they showed her doing some healing using the Force. If all of the souls and all of the Force of every Jedi before her are inhabiting her, she's taking all the things that they know and kind of applying it as she goes along. It's kind of a built-in instinct at this point, because now she has become the quote-unquote chosen one, and I don't have an issue with that. Next, Kylo Ren regresses. Yes, he regresses, but then he also has a different arc where he comes full circle and becomes good again. So, I mean, me personally, I liked him in the first film. In The Last Jedi, they did some interesting things between him and Rey. Him crushing his helmet was kind of weird. Again, they really leaned heavy on that whole destroy the past, forget about it thing. But then you have this one right here where he rebuilds his helmet, which I think looks kind of badass with all the red and kind of the welding. I think that, again, whatever they did with Kylo, they needed to do to show him kind of returning back to some semblance of not so much innocence, but kind of redemption. It's kind of hard to do that after you've killed your father, but I think they did an alright job. Another complaint that people have is that the whole entire time they're looking for a MacGuffin, which is movie talk for basically that they're looking for one item to complete their goal. I mean, if you boil down any film, really, it's just about a MacGuffin search, whether it's a piece of knowledge, whether it's an actual item, whatever it is to actually achieve your goal. So, I mean, every Star Wars film, even the offshoots, kind of technically have that little MacGuffin aspect to it. And lastly, the Emperor's return doesn't make sense. Yeah, they didn't explain it or spell it out for you, but I mean, if you are a Star Wars fan, you can kind of fill in the blanks there. I don't like when everyone tells you every single small detail of everything, and for me, how I envision the Emperor came back is that after he got thrown down that reactor shaft, I'm sure he ended up having much damage, and through cloning, genetic methods, whatever it is, and the fact that he's in tune with the dark side of the Force, which has mysterious powers and traits, I'm sure he's tapped into some of those things. And then, of course, out of that, we have the Final Order, which was basically a Sith cult, and kind of a little cool in certain aspects that were definitely underutilized in this film. So those were the complaints that some critics had, but now it's time to get into the things that I complained about, or that I didn't really care for, or thought that they could have worked a little bit better on for the most part. First of all, the film should have been a little bit longer. The fact that it's a finale and everything, you know, I honestly feel like fans and moviegoers give a little bit more leeway for you to have a little bit more breathing room as far as a runtime. I mean, Avengers Endgame was like a 3-hour movie. Honestly, I think it would have helped for them padding out certain plot details, and they could have eased in than trying to say, oh, a big broadcast went across the galaxy in the voice of the fallen Emperor Palpatine. Plus, it would have helped with the pacing and not made it feel so rushed if they had taken their time and actually had the film a little bit longer. Next is a little bit, but I feel like they should have had a little bit more action in there, or more specifically, they should have had a nice big action set piece like the last two films. In The Last Jedi, it was the Praetorian Guard scene, and then in the first film, the reveal at the end when Rey actually picks up the lightsaber and fights Kylo. Oh my god, I mean, I had so many chills watching that scene. And also, the Knights of Ren were in this, but they were underutilized. I feel like they would have been awesome as an opportunity to show them be somewhat more of a Praetorian Guard or something more of a threat. But one of the things you notice is that the Final Order really wasn't utilized that much, and I think one of the cool things about them visually was the fact that they were Sith-based, kind of occult-ish, and it would have been really intense if they ended up doing some stuff with the undead, like if the Emperor had brought back undead stormtrooper soldiers who are now Sith troopers or something like that. That would have made for an even more interesting arc, and they would have played a little bit with kind of this ghostly figure in the Emperor. And I feel like at the end when Rey was rising up and hearing all the Force voices, there should have been more Force ghosts. It should have been something akin to like her raising up, getting the lightsabers, and then all of a sudden behind her, all of the Force ghosts of the hundreds of Jedi are behind her, including Luke, Mace Windu, Obi-Wan, and all of them, and Anakin even, with lightsabers in hand and charging at the Emperor as she is. And beyond that, it would have been so awesome as if she was fighting the Emperor hand-to-hand style or with her lightsaber, and they're fighting, and then as she's doing certain maneuvers, you see a silhouette, a Force shape of Luke actually getting in there and doing some cool stuff and actually mimicking her moves, or she's mimicking his, and then it kind of intertwines to this kind of cool little ghost thing. Alright guys, so those are the complaints that I had, but now it's time to jump into the stuff that I liked about the film. First off, the thing that I really liked about the film was that it reduced its heavy-handedness. I mean, God almighty, in the last film they had so many things that they were trying to get across narrative-wise, and as far as that goes, they were really trying to push these things about commentary, about social commentary, about different things regarding current events and, politics and all this and that stuff, and, about the rich versus the poor. It's like, dude, you're getting too muddled up here. And I think that the last film suffered because they kept beating you over the head and inundating you with these social commentaries, and it was unnecessary. In this one, it restores the fun back into the Star Wars mythos, and honestly, I feel like it was a lot better, and despite its messy nature, it still ended up delivering on different levels that I really felt satisfied with. One of my favorite things was a flashback between Luke teaching Leia how to be a Jedi and kind of the ways of the Force and everything. They were actually duking it out with lightsabers, and I thought that was really awesome. So Disney Plus, if you're hearing this, maybe you could work in a Luke Skywalker series, kind of like The Mandalorian, which takes place after Episode 6 and up until like a certain point before Force Awakens. And if you're going to cast, please do with Sebastian Stan, because he definitely is a dead ringer for a young Luke Skywalker, as proven with that meme that ended up surfacing a little while back. I'm just saying. Other than that, I really liked Rey's Palpatine connection and making her his granddaughter. I mean, we thought that it was Obi-Wan's granddaughter or daughter. You thought that that was Luke's daughter, possibly. You thought that even it could have been Rey and, not Rey, it could have been Leia and Han's daughter and possibly Ben's sister. But by doing it where she was Palpatine's, again, it added a little bit more weight, helped to promote a message of just because people think that you're going to be bad or evil doesn't mean that you're going to be. You make yourself, and you can rise above that influence and everything. And then one of the biggest things that I liked was the fact that they were able to get Han Solo himself, Harrison Ford, back in another Star Wars film. And this played very well into a little scene that took place after Leia's sacrifice, trying to reach through her son, where Ben finally comes to terms with what he has to do. And of course, he finds the strength, finds the will. And thank you, Harrison Ford, for coming back into this film and giving us just a tiny bit more. Also, they explored the Force connection with Kylo Ren and Rey a little bit more, where they could actually physically take things back and forth across the galaxy whenever they were communicating. It made for some interesting plot stuff, and it was a cool, badass scene when Rey actually put the lightsaber behind her head, and then Rey was able to give it to Ben by doing that, the same way that he had been taking some other things from her, and then all of a sudden he just went ham on the Knights of Ren. And then my most favorite thing is the fact that Luke's Force ghost, was the exact way that Luke should have been all along. It's a 180 flip from how he was a washed up, bitter old man in the last film, and this time there's even a couple little digs at how he ended up being in that film, especially when Rey throws the lightsaber, he grabs it and he says, "The weapon of a Jedi should be treated with more respect than that." And he gives her one of the best pep talks, and he's done more in this film that's more uplifting and more hopeful, which is how he should have been in the last film, than he did in the entirety of The Last Jedi, even when he was force projecting himself against Kylo Ren. Alright guys, well, those are the things that I wanted to touch up on this spoiler review. Overall, The Rise of Skywalker, despite not delivering on some of the seeds planted in The Force Awakens, despite not being as dynamic as the previous two films and having some of that nice, tighter kind of narrative, I think overall it was a very good film. It was a bookend to this trilogy and the overall saga of the Skywalker legacy. Messy, rushed at times, but overall it delivered on fun, action, gave us callbacks, cameos, and it ended up presenting kind of a good bookend, in my opinion, to how the series was. I really enjoyed this film a lot more than I expected. I give it a solid 3 out of 5. If you haven't seen the film, which I hope you have because this was a spoiler review, don't listen to all the haters, don't listen to the naysayers. Go see a film, as I promote all the time, yourself to form an opinion. And that way, you'll know for sure if you like it or if you hate it. I did enjoy it. Like I said, 3 out of 5 stars. But anyway, guys, that's all the time that I have for today. So if you like this video, make sure you drop a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you are subscribed, make sure you hit that bell button. That way you never miss a moment of my content. But until next time, guys, that's all that I have for today. So thank you so much for joining me. And as always, I'm Jay. So take care, and bye.